Hi everyone and welcome back to Chess for Charity. In this video, I'm going to show you an amazing puzzle where it is white to play and win. It may not look like it, but this is not a drawn position. Take a second, see if you can find the winning idea for white. Just to quickly note, the knight here is hanging, so be careful. This pawn wants to run, so keep that in mind. And this pawn on h2 is very dangerously close to promotion. So keep all those things in mind. Consider the winning line. See if you can find it. It's a lot of fun. While you're thinking about that, let me quickly also encourage you to subscribe if you have not yet already. Half of the income that I earn in this channel goes directly to charity, so every like, every subscriber helps us out so much. Okay, so let's talk about what you can't do to start. So if you want to just push this pawn up the board, because maybe you're very one-track mind, it doesn't work for many ways, for many reasons. You could take this, but that's not the cleanest. Just take here, push here. Right? It's simply not fast enough. This is a good way to do it. Cover that square. So if you thought that, that's okay. Let's keep thinking about what else you can do. So maybe you're saying, okay, I realize this pawn is going to promote soon if I'm not careful. So maybe I make a move where I move the knight and I generate a fork. Maybe something like this. Well, if you do this, the king just steps aside, and this is going to be pushed next, and you can't generate a fork, because your knight cannot land on f3 in one move. That's not how knights work. Okay, so you say, okay, I can't go here, and for the same reason, this move doesn't do anything because same exact idea. I can't get to f3, and if I attack it, there's simply no way to follow up. Okay, great. So I have two squares, h4 and e1. These both do kind of the thing I was talking about. They both look at f3, right? Like that. That's the arrow here. So if I play knight e1 and they play king g1, now I can play knight f3 check. I can give up my knight, and then you have to wonder whether or not this is a winning endgame. So something like this, for example, right? This is the question you have to ask yourself. Now we're going to have to analyze that, but you have to also kind of keep in consideration, is knight e1 to begin with the best move? Well, it's not. And I want to make sure I show why and how it compares to knight h4. Knight h4 is the correct move. Knight e1, looking very similar, is not the correct move. So if you play knight e1, black has a really good idea. Right? Ideally, white wants to play knight f3, collect this pawn, give up the knight, and hopefully run this up the board and be fast enough to get the king over here. Wonderful arrows that I'm drawing. So if you do this, black has a wonderful move. The move bishop c3, which disturbs the placement of this piece. And you might say, okay, what's wrong with this? Can't I just go here anyway? I wanted to go to f3 anyway. And surprisingly, this is actually a drawn position, because after king g2, I'm threatening to take here. You have to take, as white, take, and this is a draw, because if you go to push this, the king is actually close enough and the bishop can contribute, and it's totally fine. So one way to draw this, bishop b4, if you want to push the pawn, pretty much this bishop right now can play bishop e7. That's a nice way to do it. And if you go to run around, it's just simply not fast enough. Bishop a3, we'll just play it this way, something like this, and look at the way this works out. King f4, you want to run over here, it's going to be one of these cases, like this, if I can show it, and the king's going to be locked in to the corner. So, what am I saying here? I'm saying you have to be very, very careful on how you decide to play this. So if you play knight e1, they can disturb you first, and also now, by being on c3, they have access to this diagonal. Right? That's a key note there. Okay, so what if I play knight h4? I already told you that's the right move, but what's the difference here? How does this compare? Well, the black king wants to move and then push this pawn. Right, that's the idea. So if black plays king g1, you can play knight f3 check, but you have to see all the way down this line. And I will tell you right now, it is a very hard line to see. So okay, let's play it. Let's show you the amazing stuff. This is why I selected the puzzle. Knight f3 check. King moves, you give up your knight. Let me ask you a question. In this position, after the king takes, what does white play? What would you play? It seems kind of obvious, right? The first move seems incredibly obvious. Right? Question mark at the end of that? Well, you push this pawn up the board. No kidding, right? Well, no. Like, that's the right move, but not for the reason you think. So if I push this pawn and they take, what do you plan on doing here? You plan on taking? Well, then what? They play king g3. We're going to have this same situation where you run to the corner. I'm just going to try to do this as fast as I can. And you get boxed in by your own material. You can't do anything. This is a drawn position by repetition. So what was your plan? That's the idea. When you push this pawn and they take it, what was your plan? Incredibly, the correct move after you push the pawn to e5 and they take, the whole reason I selected this puzzle, king to e6. Look at that. It looks like a mouse slip. It's not a mouse slip. The idea is actually the only winning move in the position is king e6. Now, why does this work? Well, now the king, pretty obviously, is running here, taking this pawn, pushing this guy up the board. And there's nothing that black can do about it. So if you try to run your king in, let's just keep really close note of what this king is trying to do on h2. It's trying to run in like this, right? Very similar to how I just did it before. But now there's a bishop in the way. Notice that. So if I play king d7, they play king f4. I can't play that way. King c8, king f5. Just notice the timing to it. King d6, king b7. I'm pushing this through and they can't stop me. Obviously, if they do that, just take it. There's no stopping that. And you're not going to be able to stop them. So king here, this is an obvious win. Doesn't matter. So what's the point I'm making here? What is so amazing about this puzzle? The amazing piece about this puzzle is the fact that you give up your knight, and then you have to calculate the fact that after they take here, you don't take the bishop. Instead, you run around, and the reason you run around is because now this bishop on e5 is obstructing their own path. That's the key. That's the key. So just make sure it's clear. If you instead played, I don't know, let's just see how I can show this. If you played here and they did the same thing and you went like this immediately and they took, it's the exact same situation. It's just now this bishop is not here. So look at what the black king is going to do. The black king is going to make use of this square. This is where the bishop was just a moment ago. So make sure you're seeing the detail. Knight h4, king g1, and then this whole fork, everything, that's now the difference. Now the king cannot get to e5, the black king, that is, because now king e6, and just look at this. You might ask yourself, is there any other resistance that can be played? Can they play here? Sure, they can. I'm just going to take it. So what do you do? Here, here. King is not in time. If you want to see if it's fast enough, it's just a little too slow. Look at that. Blocked. And this guy is going to run. So it's a super cool puzzle. I love the touch of that. So I should also say just immediately, no other move in this position wins. There's only one move, knight h4, and it's a very thin path from that position to a victory. Now you might say, but wait a second. Is there anything else in this position that can be played? They don't have to play king g1. And that would be true, but nothing else is sensible because pretty much the way that it works is, let's say what do you want to play? Bishop somewhere? Let's just say you want to play here. What do? You could just play e5 here. And if they take, you could take. This is fine because your king is much closer now. Look. This way. This way. And look at where your king is now. Look at that. So cool. I'm pretty sure you can see how this plays out. But look at that. Bang. Right, notice the slight differences in tempo. It's amazing. If you want to continue this with going somewhere else after knight h4 is played, it's all going to result in the same thing. But that's pretty much it. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, let me know in the comments. It's a really fun puzzle. That move right there. King E6. Oops. I'm playing the wrong line. King E6. Super cool. But yeah, that is it for now. Thank you so much for watching.